Hey everyone, SpiderMan 1991 here, and I'm going to talk about my top 10 superheroes. This was a topic request from Jack Meyer, who left it in the video I made when I had 500 subscribers. Alright, and a couple of years ago I did do something similar to this when I did the 12 heroes of Christmas leading up to Christmas Day. So this list is going to be is more of an updated version of that original list, but it's only going to be 10 instead of 12. Alright, let's get started with my number 10 pick, Nightwing. Dick Grayson was the first sidekick of Batman to be called Robin. Like Batman, Dick watched his parents die before him and became Batman's protege. Eventually, though, after he went off to college, Dick Grayson was in Gotham Blessed and started to spend more time with the recently reformed Teen Titans. Eventually, becoming mostly being the team's leader. Eventually, Dick had to make a choice, either to be Robin and remain at Batman's side, or stay with the Titans. And Dick decided to stay with the Titans. Realized he was his own man, so he decided to stay with the Teen Titans. Eventually, and taking upon the identity known as Nightwing, Dick became a hero in his own right. Eventually, he did leave the Teen Titans, but he still continued being Nightwing. He eventually moved to Bloodhaven, which was the main setting of the last Nightwing solo series. And even though very early in his career, while he was Robin, many people thought, oh, he's probably going to grow up to be the next Batman. Well, that was partially true, as whenever Bruce either had his spine broken or was believed to be dead, Dick did step into the role, but it was only temporary, as the real alias they used as being a superhero was Nightwing. I like Dick Grayson mainly because of how he made the choice to be his own man instead of always doing what Batman said, and that choice did lead to a lot of separation between the two for years, until finally they kind of made things up and spoke again as a result of the Nightfall story, where Dick did have to temporarily be Batman while Bruce was still recovering after his fight from Bane in Jean Paul Valley. So overall, I think Dick Grayson is a great character. He pretty much did, and rather than, and even though he did start off as a sidekick, rather than be what his mentor was, he decided to forge his own path, which I think is very admirable. All right, number 9, The Flash, Wally West, pre-New 52, by the way. So Wally West, he is similar to Dick Grayson. He is pretty similar to Dick Grayson, except Wally actually did succeed his mentor in becoming the next Flash. Originally, Wally was the first Kid Flash, but then eventually, as Wally got older and he was in college, his powers were kind of starting to not work right, so he decided to retire and focus on college until Crisis on Infinite Earths happened and Barry died, and so Wally decided to realize that the world needs the Flash, so he decided to become the next Flash. Unfortunately, Wally could only go as fast as the speed of sound until an adventure involving Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash, made Wally overcome his fear of replacing Barry, and thus he was able to bring his powers back up to their former height and be nearly as fast and as powerful as Barry was. So, and Wally wasn't exactly a perfect clone of Barry. Wasn't really a clone of Barry. He did have his own unique adventures. Even though he fought some of Barry's old rogues, he even had some of his own, such as a new Trickster, a new Mirror Master, and some new original villains such as Plunderer, Tar-Pit, just to name a few. And eventually Wally did kind of grow up, get married, have a couple kids, and unfortunately, though, right after that was when he kind of started to phase away from the DC universe because Barry was resurrected. But overall, I think Wally is a very great character. He's definitely a unique character, and very different from Barry. He's had and I think a lot of readers today probably identify Wally as their Flash more than Barry, unfortunately. But nevertheless, Wally is still an amazing character. He's really awesome, and that's why I like him. Number 8. Iron Man, Tony Stark. Tony Stark, before becoming the Armored Avenger, Tony was basically a rich billionaire playboy philanthropist who basically sold weapons and didn't really care where his money was going until finally one day he was kidnapped, put in a prisoner war camp by a bunch of terrorists, eventually forced to make weapons for them. Also when he was captured, he was injured, so that a piece of shrapnel was right near his heart, and the only way he could save it was by constructing sort of a magnet pacemaker that he installed to keep the shrapnel away from his heart. And during this time, Tony decided to build a suit of armor to help him escape. And after he escaped, Tony realized that he needs to leave a better mark on the world. And oh yeah, I forgot. Can't believe I left this out of the origin, but he was also helped by another scientist who gave his life to make sure Tony's plan succeeded. And so Tony realized in order to save his fallen friend and also to make sure he can leave a better mark on the world, he decided to become the armored Avenger Iron Man. And also he got out of the weapons business. Another interesting thing about Tony is that during I believe the 80s, Marvel decided to reveal that Tony Stark was an alcoholic, and that led to, I think, one of the best moments for Tony's character. Was at first he kind of had to realize that he did have a drinking problem, and Tony did get over it until he had a relapse when Obadiah Stane led a takeover and took over Stark Industries and forced Tony out, thus leaving Tony a broken man until again he was able to sober up, get his strength back, and go after Obadiah Stane and who's becoming Ironmonger. Tony built a new Silver Centaurian armor and took him out. I'm a little sketchy about the details about how Tony retook Stark Industries, but basically Tony's alcoholism did lead to was sort of an interesting character flaw that they decided to choose for a superhero, and I think that's great. And also, every single comic that you see Tony in, he's always usually sarcastic. He doesn't seem as serious as the other heroes, but he does have a plan. And also I think the way Robert Downey Jr. portrays him in the Marvel movies is also phenomenal. So overall, that's why I like Iron Man. Next up, number 7, Captain America, Steve Rogers. In the 1940s, during World War II, Steve Rogers was a skinny kid infected with polio. So he volunteered for a super soldier program in order to help fight the Germans. This program gave him super strength and pretty much put his body to the peak of human performance, thus making him the first super soldier and only super soldier, because the creator of the formula was shortly killed. Afterwards, Steve Rogers decided to help the Allies by fighting in the war and leading the U.S. to victory as Captain America. Eventually, though, during the closing days of the war, Captain America and his partner Bucky were trapped and tied to a bomb by Baron Zemo, which was launched over the English Channel. Fortunately, Rogers was able to escape before the bomb exploded, but Bucky wasn't as fortunate. I mean, he survived, but then he got amnesia, lost an arm. You can read about that more in Winter Soldier. After the bomb, and Cap, however, landed in the English Channel, but unfortunately he was knocked out, and the current took him up north, where he was frozen for several years until he was discovered by the Avengers. Since stepping to the modern day, Steve Rogers has not just fought alongside the Avengers, but also Shield as well, and he has worked for the U.S. government as well. But really, for the most part, Captain America doesn't really fight for the politicians. He fights to represent what America is. And there are times where Steve Rogers has surrendered has stopped being Captain America, but he still continued to do what he thought was right. Right, and also, so overall, I think the thing I love about Captain America is his endurance. The way how he's basically a character that was created for World War II, but he still managed to be relevant for all these years to this day, which is very fantastic, which is why he's on this list. Number 6, Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan was the first human inducted into the Green Lantern Corps, mainly because of his ability to overcome great fear. I think one of the best Hal Jordan, even though, and Hal was pretty much a big member of the Green Lantern Corps. He has resigned on a couple of occasions, but he still managed to get his powering back. Unfortunately, and also there was the brief period. Okay, that period was the period where he became the supervillain Parallax after Coast City was destroyed, and the Guardians refused to allow him to use his power ring to reconstruct it. So that and the seemingly and this was later revealed, the seemingly the low-level possession of Parallax made Hal Jordan snap, kill a bunch of Green Lanterns, absorb power from go into the central power battery, which allowed the Parallax entity to fully bond with Hal Jordan, thus making him the Superman Parallax. But Hal Jordan eventually came to the side of good when he sacrificed his life to reignite Earth's sun during the final Night story arc. Afterwards, Hal Jordan's spirit became the new Spectre until he was resurrected in the Green Lantern Rebirth story arc, which brought him back to being a standard Green Lantern. Okay, Hal Jordan is a great character. He stands up for what he believes, no matter what. He always does what he thinks is right, and it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Sinestro, Blackhand, the Guardians of the Universe. He actually stands up. He's pretty much the Green Lantern notable for giving the Guardians the most. I would say he's definitely the Green Lantern that gives the Guardians the most grief, especially when in War of the Green Lanterns, which was one of my favorite Hal Jordan moments, when he kills the rogue Guardian Corona. And basically the Guardians are surprised by this because a Green Lantern ring is designed not to kill a Guardian. And Hal Jordan was basically able to kill one of them because of his willpower. I thought that was great. I'm like, okay, that basically sums it up for me why Hal Jordan is one of the best Green Lanterns. I mean, and that was, and currently since the Guardians are, Hal Jordan now leads the Green Lantern Corps. Leads the Green Lantern Corps. I'm probably going to trade weight that, see how it turns. I'm probably going to wait till the next trade to check out what's been going on in Green Lantern recently. But overall, Hal Jordan's a great character. He's definitely my favorite Green Lantern, and he's the only one on this list. Next up, number 5, Flash. But this time I'm talking about Barry Allen. Okay, Barry Allen. He was pretty much the first in DC's line of Silver Age superheroes. The cool thing that I liked about Barry Allen was that he didn't just save people as the Flash. He also helped out as Barry Allen because he was a police scientist. He would look at evidence. He'd scan crime scenes, and I think that connection with his job helped him be a better superhero as the Flash. And also I do like his powers because he can use his powers to sort of vibrate his molecules through walls and stuff. That's pretty fun. That's pretty awesome. But the main thing that made Barry Allen a really cool superhero in my eyes was the fact that he died saving the universe in Crisis on Infinite Earths. I heard about how Barry died through Modern Flash comics, about how he died saving the universe. But then when I actually read Crisis and I saw what happened to Barry, how he just kept running. It was killing him, but he still kept to shut down the Anti-Monitor's weapon, but he still kept running. He knew what he had to do, and that was really great how Barry Allen saved everyone. Now a couple years ago, DC decided to bring right before the New 52, they decided to bring Barry Allen back in Flash Rebirth. Then he had his own ongoing until Flashpoint, which led to the New 52. Okay, so now I think now Barry's back to being the Flash in current continuity. I think that's great. I think it's good. I think in a way the New 52 did help Barry in a way, because now he's the Flash again. So now we get to read more about him, which is good because there aren't a lot of Barry Allen stories that have been reprinted. Like there have been like the archive editions and Flash Chronicles, but the only other story arc that I can think of that they did reprint was The Trial of Barry Allen, but it was in part of DC's Showcase Presents line, which is a line of comic books that are in black and white, that are reprinted but they're in black and white. Plus the book was like really thick. It took me like an entire afternoon to read it, but it was still a pretty good story about Barry's final days of the Flash leading up to Crisis on Infinite Earths. So yeah, overall Barry Allen, he was also a good mentor to Wally. I will say that, because pretty much Barry did help make Wally the hero he is, or was, in the New 52. Pre-New 52. Man, that's confusing. But overall, Barry Allen was a great character. I liked how he was both a police scientist and a superhero. I thought that was a great connection. That's why he's my number 5. Next up, number 4, Superboy, Connor Kent or Con-El, and again, pre-New 52. Pretty much in the pre-52 continuity, Superboy was the clone of Superman that appeared during the death and return of Superman's story arc. Eventually, and at first, everyone thought he was a full clone Superman, but he didn't have all of Superman's powers, and it was revealed that his super strength, speed, and flight came from an ability known as tactile telekinesis, and that he was only half a clone Superman, and that his human DNA belonged to, well, on file it said it belonged to the director of Cadmus, Paul Westfield. But years later, as part of the new Teen Titans series, which involved former members of Young Justice being part of the new Teen Titans, it was revealed that Superboy's real human DNA came from Lex Luthor. Now, I thought that was a good twist on the Super. Now, I liked Superboy. He was a lot like He had pretty much most of Superman's powers, but he wasn't raised by the Kents. He was actually grown in a pod and came out 16 years old, and so he really didn't have the background on Kansas that Superman had, but he still wanted to be Superman, and he still wanted to live to a good example in that. So it's interesting to him trying to sort of be the next Superman and try to live up to Superman's reputation made him an interesting character. And I think it was very interesting when he learned that his human DNA came from Lex Luthor, because that really freaked him out. And that was the theme when he was on Teen Titans was, am I going to be the next Superman, or am I going to turn out to be the next Lex Luthor? And he was temporarily mind controlled by Lex Luthor at some point, and eventually though Superboy realized it doesn't matter whose DNA I have. The point is I'm a hero, and he saved the world. And like Barry Allen, he did stop the main antagonist in Infinite Crisis, Superboy Prime, by in the process giving his life to stop him. So yeah. But eventually Superboy was brought back, and he was given his own ongoing series where he stayed in Smallville, and had his own adventures while still trying to figure out who he was. And again, we went back to the whole theme of Superman, whether he was going to be the next Superman or the next Lex Luthor. But Superboy decided, hey, I'm not going to be either of those guys. I'm just going to be me, and that's pretty much what happened for him. Then we got unfortunately, I liked Superboy. I liked him in Smallville. He had, especially his ongoing series by Jeff Lemire. I thought that was very good. How Jeff Lemire kind of gave Superboy his own supporting cast. But unfortunately, that series was canceled because Flashpoint and the New 52. After the New 52, Superboy got screwed. But yeah, so pretty much Superboy, whenever I say Superboy and how much I like that character, I'm referring to the pre-New 52 Superboy, who was awesome, very interesting character, and again, I got into comics as a teenager, so I kind of identified with that. That was something that really spoke to me, and I liked it. Alright, next up, number 3, Batman. Okay. We all know Batman's awesome, so I don't think I need to go into much detail about it, but yeah, Batman. He saw his parents die in front of him, and originally Bruce Wayne just wanted to protect Gotham, and eventually though that drew the attention of got him involved with the other heroes of the DC universe, Superman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Flash, and eventually he became one of the founding members of the Justice League. So Batman slowly turned from basically this urban this urban protector of Gotham City into one of the biggest superheroes in the DC universe. And also, Batman isn't just just super rich. He's also an amazing strategist, as he even figured out ways to take down almost every member of the Justice League. Okay, that's impressive. That is very impressive. He's had several proteges, Robins, if you will, and overall, Batman. He's pretty much represents what I think is probably one of the most. He pretty much represents what any human being can do if they really set their mind to a goal and stick with it. And I've always thought of Batman as someone that anyone could be if they just, focus and drive. That's what makes Batman different. Because everyone says, oh, hey, Batman could be anyone who has a ton of money. No, it's his drive. It's his intense focus. It's how he felt the night he saw his parents die in front of him. He remembers that night clearly because he doesn't want that to happen to anyone ever again. And so that's why he works hard. That's why he's probably one of the best heroes ever, and that's why he's number 3 on my list. Number 2, Spider-Man. Peter Parker, not Dr. Octopus or Ben Reilly. Spider-Man, like I said, I got into comics as a teenager, and originally Peter Parker was a nerdy high school wallflower, and I kind of identified with that. I wasn't really socially outgoing or something like that, and so reading about how Peter Parker was as a teenager, how he was still didn't quite fit in with everyone, but as Spider-Man, everyone loved him. Well, all the kids in school loved Spider-Man, and he couldn't really be honest with that. Also, I liked how when he did get his powers at first, he thought, I'm going to just use these powers to become a performer, get super rich, so I can maybe help out my aunt and uncle. Unfortunately, though, one night when Peter decides to let Robert slip by because, well, he was just basically selfish at the time, or didn't care. The robber got away. Later that night, broke into his aunt and uncle's house and killed Uncle Ben by coincidence. By coincidence. When Peter later finds out that the robber that killed Uncle Ben was actually the one he let go, that hits Peter hard. It makes Peter realize that he does have these powers, but he shouldn't be using them for his own selfish reasons. He should be using them to help other people, to make sure that they're safe. And it's just like Uncle Ben said, with probably one of the most quoted superhero lines ever, with great power comes great responsibility. That just basically sums up Spider-Man. And even though Peter has had a lot of good adventures as Spider-Man, it's also been very frustrating for him, as being Spider-Man has caused him to be late for certain things. It's had people question what he does, and because he can't be truly honest, it's broken a lot of relationships. But even though he's quit numerous times, Peter has still gone back into the costume, never given up, always remembering what Uncle Ben said about great power and responsibility, and still continues to fight for the greater good. Alright, now it's time for number 1. My number 1 hero is Superman. Alright, basically Superman is an alien. He was the dying planet of Krypton, rocketed from Earth, landed in Kansas, where he was raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent, and eventually grew up to become one of the best heroes in the DC universe. Alright, I love Superman because he represents even though he's not human, he still represents probably one of the best of humanity has to offer. And he's pretty much one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe. He decides to, instead of conquering or taking a lot of riches, he decides, I'm going to use my powers to help people, because that's what's important. That's what my parents taught me. And that's what makes Superman great. It isn't, and he's an enduring character. He's very nice, and he always stands up for what he believes in, and he does it, and just the way, and it all depends on who's writing Superman, but the way he does things, he does them in the light mostly. He's not all gloom and doom. He always tries to figure out a way to do things, but do them positively, so that because people look to him and they see just basically one of the best people in the world. I mean, that's how most people in DCU see it. He's always strong, he's commanding, authoritative. Well, when I say commanding, I mean he usually takes charge of a situation, and he always does the right. Superman always does the right thing, even though the right thing isn't always necessarily the good thing. Such as when post-crisis he was forced to stop a version. He was forced to kill a version of General Zod. I'm not referring to Man of Steel. I'm actually referring to something that happened in post-crisis on Infinite Earths. It was a story arc. It was a story arc where he was brought to another version of Earth, where basically in alternate versions of General Zod, Ursa, and Non took over Earth, broke free from the Phantom Zone and attacked Earth because that version of Clark Kent was killed years ago. So no one could oppose them, but Superman did stop them by using gold kryptonite to take away their powers, but they were still dangerous, so he had no choice, and he couldn't put them back in the Phantom Zone because the projector was destroyed, so he had no choice but to kill them with green kryptonite. And it's not something Superman took lightly. It wasn't something he could go, okay, they're dead, I'm moving on. It haunted him for many years, and even decided to exile himself from Earth by exploring space. And heroes are, and sometimes that's what happens in a story nowadays. A hero is sometimes forced to do something they wouldn't, and it haunts them. And I think the fact that these things affect Superman, the way he doesn't let them go, it just reminds him that he needs to be better. He needs to always make sure there's a better way to solve something. That's what makes Superman great. Okay, so this is it. So that was my entire top 10 list. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. If you have any more topics for videos like this, please comment below. I'm SpiderMan 1991 saying see you later.